Millions of years ago, when the earth was still young, the forests ruled the land. Towering trees rose like pillars into the misty sky, their branches cradling the nests of ape-like humans who clung to them for safety. These early people, neither beasts nor fully human, stirred with the rising sun, their heavy brows shadowing eyes sharp enough to notice the slightest flicker of danger. They had no words, no songs, no stories, but their world spoke to them through sounds. The cry of a hunting bird, the roar of a distant predator, the rustle of leaves signaling something unseen. At night, they huddled together in crude nests of twigs, finding warmth and safety in numbers, their bodies pressed close, their breath mingling with the cool night air. As the pale light of dawn crept through the trees, the band awoke, their stomachs growling with hunger, urging them to climb down into the uncertain day. The mothers carried their young clinging to their fur, tiny fingers gripping tightly, while the strongest males led the descent, sniffing the wind for the smell of danger. They were cautious, for the ground was both promise and peril. It held fruits, roots, and fallen prey, but also the lurking jaws of saber-toothed cats and crocodiles that slid silently through the rivers. To live was to risk, and each day was a story of survival. Yet, even in their simplicity, there was rhythm in their life. The mornings carried a pulse of routine, a dance between hunger and fear, and the bond of their group held them together like threads in a fragile web. Once their feet touched the forest floor, the search for food began. They did not farm, nor did they store for tomorrow, for such thoughts had not yet taken root in their minds. Instead, their survival depended on instinct, memory, and the keen eyes of the scouts who remembered which trees bore fruit and which hollow logs held fat, squirming insects. The females plucked berries from bushes, their sharp nails digging into bark to uncover grubs, while the young watched, learning silently by mimicry. The males searched for fallen prey, bones still heavy with marrow, or scraps left behind by more powerful predators. They carried crude stones, sharp edges chipped by chance, which served as tools to crack shells or tear open hides. The forest gave much but asked much in return. Those who ventured too far risked never returning. A sudden cry could scatter the group, each member scrambling up trees, their hearts pounding as shadows moved below. Hunger was their guide, but fear was their teacher. And yet, there was joy too. When a fruit-laden tree was found, when a honeycomb dripped golden sweetness, when the young tumbled in play, imitating their elders by swinging from vines. Their foraging was not just survival. It was the thread of their existence, weaving each day into the next, keeping them tied to the land that gave and threatened in equal measure. Danger lurked at every corner of their world. The thick jungle was home to great cats with saber-like fangs, crocodiles that slipped unseen beneath the water, and giant birds with talons sharp enough to pierce flesh. Prehistoric humans were not hunters but prey, fragile compared to the beasts around them. A rustle in the undergrowth sent them scrambling, their cries echoing through the trees as they fled higher and higher into branches. When one fell, the band would scream in panic, their voices raw with fear, though few dared descend to rescue. Survival was cruel, and loss was as common as breath. The young were most vulnerable. Small bodies easily snatched by eagles or constricting snakes that wrapped around them before a cry could escape. Yet, in facing such threats, they grew sharper, faster, more united. They learned the warning signs, the silence of birds before a predator's approach, the scent of blood on the wind, the way shadows shifted unnaturally when a cat stalked close. Their world demanded constant vigilance, and in their fear, they forged the earliest sparks of cooperation. They began to hurl stones, to brandish sticks, to scream in unison as a wall of sound meant to drive predators back. Though fragile, they were clever, and in cleverness lay the seed of their survival. Though their lives were harsh, there was strength in togetherness. Alone, a prehistoric human would not last long, but within a band, even the weak had a chance. They groomed one another, plucking lice and dirt from thick fur, a gesture that was more than cleanliness. It was comfort, reassurance, the first language of love and loyalty. Mothers nursed their young tenderly, their eyes soft despite the harshness of the world, while older siblings learned responsibility by carrying babies on their backs. The males, though often aggressive, stood as protectors, watching the shadows and keeping the group intact. Conflicts erupted, of course. Shrieks, bites, and blows when food was scarce, but these quarrels faded quickly, soothed by touch and proximity. Around rivers, they splashed and drank together, their laughter-like cries carrying across the water. At night, they clustered in nests once more, the warmth of many bodies warding off the chill. This bond was their true weapon, greater than claws or teeth, for it bound them into something larger than individuals. It was the earliest hint of what would one day be called society. Within their primitive lives, a flicker of something greater stirred. They were not only beasts of instinct, they watched, remembered, and sometimes wondered. A child might pick up a shiny stone, turning it over again and again, fascinated by its gleam in the sunlight. A mother might notice how a stick broke sharp and useful after snapping against a rock. They learned by accident, by repetition, and slowly, a world of tools opened before them. Sharp stones became weapons, sticks became levers, bones became hammers. Though they did not yet understand fire, they gathered around the warmth of lightning-struck trees, their eyes wide as if in awe of a living spirit. They mimicked the crackling glow, reaching out but recoiling at its bite. Their curiosity was dangerous but also divine, the first step toward something more. The forest whispered lessons, and though they did not yet speak, their eyes carried memory, and their hands began to shape the future. As the sun sank, painting the horizon in hues of red and gold, the prehistoric humans climbed once more into their shelters above the ground. Their bellies were not always full, but survival itself was victory. They curled close together, their young nestled safely within the circle of the group. The world around them was vast, untamed, and merciless, yet they endured. Each day they faced hunger, predators, and storms, yet each day they learned how to move, how to find food, how to defend one another. They were still bound to instinct, but instinct was slowly giving way to something greater. In their cries lay the beginning of language, in their tools the beginning of technology, in their bonds the beginning of society. They did not know it, but their struggle was the first chapter of humanity. The dawn would come again, and with it, the endless rhythm of survival. Millions of years later, their descendants would look back and call them ancestors, but for them, it was only life. Fragile, uncertain, and sacred.